performance, to succeed in every area of your life, and to achieve your dreams. And the way I do this is by introducing you to some of America's greatest speakers, authors, and thought leaders. Not only are we going to talk about the topics that they speak and write about all over the world, but I'll also take you behind the scenes to get to know the person behind the personality. My guest today is Jim Rohn. Jim has been hailed over the years as one of the most influential thinkers of our time and considered to be America's foremost business philosopher. He has been sharing his success philosophies for over 40 years to over 4 million people worldwide. Jim Rohn has helped motivate and train an entire generation of personal development trainers, as well as hundreds of executives from America's top corporations. He is a master motivator, author, and a living legend. Welcome, Jim.
Wow, Chris, thank you very much.
Yeah, good to have you here.
I'll take you with me around the world. Just to introduce me.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, we were talking as we did the run-through for the promo there about being a living legend, and you really are. I mean, you have had an incredible life, an exceptional life, where you've been able to influence so many people. How do you go from the kid that you started out to, where you're at now, speaking all over the world? How do you get started in that?
Well, part of it is living long enough to have a chance to be a legend, right?
There you go.
And I just celebrated birthday number 75.
Wow.
But 25 years old, I'm living in Idaho, where I was born and raised. And, I'm married. I've got a little family started and struggling to pay my bills, but, working hard and doing the best I can. And then you've heard the story. I get this knock on the door, and there's a little Girl Scout selling Girl Scout cookies. And she gives me this incredible presentation. Girl Scouts, best organization in the world. Everybody wants to support the Girl Scouts. We've got these cookies, only $2. And she very politely asked me to buy. No problem. I wanted to buy. Big problem. I didn't have $2 in my pocket. And I'm not destitute, but my pockets are empty. I'm a grown man. I'm 25 years old. I've been to 1 year of college. I got a little family going. I live in America, and I don't have the $2 in my pocket. And I didn't want to tell her that, so I did what I thought was next best. I lied to her. And I said, hey, look, I've already bought lots of Girl Scout cookies. We've still got plenty in the house we haven't eaten yet. She said, oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. And she leaves. When she leaves, I say to myself, I don't want to live like this anymore. I mean, how low can you get lying to a Girl Scout, right?
Exactly.
So that was one of those days I call the day that turns your life around.
Yeah.
When I really made the commitment, I must start a search for finding ways to do better. I always wanted to, but I just hadn't found the person or the ways. Shortly after that, I found someone who became my mentor over a 5-year period after that, between ages 25 and 30, 31. What he taught me made me a millionaire, entrepreneur, changed my life, refined my philosophy, helped me develop skills and disciplines that I didn't have before. Totally revolutionized my life over that 5-year period. And that was the beginning of my change of mind and circumstances. And then that led to where I am today.
I wonder how many people have that dramatic moment like you did. You shut that door and you went, I just lied to a Girl Scout person. Some people could have just said, well, I had to do what I had to do. Other people like yourself say, never again.
Yeah, you don't know. I call it the mystery and the magic. Why one experience affects a person one way and another person passes it off and doesn't let it change their life for the better. Or they might not do it now, and maybe later something else will happen, and that'll be the moment. You just don't know. As you know, lecturing, giving seminars, teaching, training, why some people pick it up, do something with it, change their lives, and others don't.
I remember at the 2004 Weekend Leadership event, we had someone come back who had been to the 2001, and they were in real estate, and they had bought some outrageous amount of real estate, $50 million in the last, because they walked out of the last one and said, and then another guy was there, and he said, I was at the same one, but he went out and did it, and I didn't. Well, he was back for 2004. He said, in 2007, he said, I'm coming back, and I will have built my fortune.
Yeah. That's part of the mystery. You know, I've written how many books now? 5 or 6, and I should have written 26. So what happened to those other 20 books? That's the mystery. You know, the magic is the 6, and the mystery is the 20 that are missing. So we're a bit of a mystery to ourselves, right?
Yeah, sure.
I should have, but I didn't.
Yeah.
You know, I had the skills, but I didn't put them to work. So we all have a bit of that. But then the things we do that sort of dramatically change our life, that's the magic. That's the power. Yeah. Part of it is the law of averages. You know, I tell this little Bible story about the sower went out to sow the seed, and he was highly ambitious and he had good seed, but the first part of the seed that he sowed, the birds got. And then the next, he keeps going, and the next seed falls on stony ground where the soil is shallow. And the little plant starts to grow, and the first hot day it withers and dies. So he keeps on going. The next seed that he sowed fell on thorny ground. Yeah. The little plant starts to grow, and then the thorns choke it to death. And it called the thorns little cares, little things that keep people from doing the bigger things. And then finally, he keeps on sowing, and the seed falls finally on good ground. But then the good ground was a bit of an interesting idea, that some of it produced 30%, some of it produced 60, and some of it produced 100. So it's the full range from the birds getting some and the hot weather and the thorns to the good ground, even though good ground has a variety of 30, 60, 100. So when I started out lecturing, I wondered why I couldn't get everybody to do the 100%. Then I found out, you know, this is not to be, right? You know, so that when I say to John, you should have been at the meeting last night, and he said, well, hey, the screen door came off the hinges. I had to fix and do some repairs. And so I say, now I understand that some people are going to let little things cheat them out of doing better things. But maybe that'll change. Yeah. You know, a week from now, somebody wakes up and has an experience like I did with the Girl Scout, and everything changes. So the door usually is always open, unless somebody totally resists the idea of self-improvement. But I think there's enough experiences along the way to prod us and push us a little bit. Or we hear a testimonial, or we read a book, right, or somebody buys us a ticket and we go to a seminar, and we're never the same again. You share an idea with someone, 2 people, one of them says, I see it, and the other one says, it isn't clear to me. You say, why not? It's perfectly clear when you shared it.
Yeah, why can't you see what I see?
Yeah, true. How come you don't feel like I feel? So you have to allow for that. And then we have to allow for it happening even in our own experience, like me with the missing books. I should have, and I didn't. I let it go, and I should have picked it up. So I guess the key is to do the best we can, and the key is to keep learning from every experience possible. Our own personal experiences, or from someone else's experiences, by sermon, the lyrics of a song, a personal testimonial someone gives you sitting at Denny's for a Tuesday morning breakfast, and something clicks and something happens. You never know.
Yeah, those moments are kind of a mixture of everything coming together, right timing and your own personal circumstances. So you end up going to work for Earl Shoaff, and you had lots of lessons to learn. What were
over
some
that
of those?
6-year, 7-year period? He was with me about 5 years, and then he died, but at the early age of 49. But those were such dramatic days of incredible change. And the stuff he taught, he only went to the 9th grade in school, so he put things very simply. For the excuses I gave, he said, no, those are not the reasons. I said, things cost too much. He said, no, you can't afford them. You know, little philosophies like that opened my eyes to see.
What was the story where you brought him a paycheck? You said, this is all they pay.
Yeah, this is all they pay. He says, no, this is all they pay you. I thought, oh, you're right, I guess. He said, don't some at the company make 3, 4, 5 times this much? And I said, well, yes. And he said, well, this is not all they pay. This is all they pay you. Yeah. If you qualified for the 10 times this, wouldn't they pay you that amount? And I said, I guess they would, of course. He said, well, let's go to work on that. Yeah. We don't have to go to work on the company for more pay. We've got to go to work on you to become more qualified.
Yeah, they have pay structure already set up for some people. Set up. You got to fit into that.
And then when in my lectures, I show this little economic staircase, ladder to climb.
Yeah.
Starts at $5 an hour and goes all the way up to 32 million for 1 year.
Right.
1 year's annual income. And somewhere along the way, by what we hear and what we experience, we try to make ourselves better qualified for the next move up.
Yeah.
And that's the key, is to keep moving up, keep growing, keep developing, see what all you can do with your life.
What he was really the first person to give you the idea of personal development,
Mm-hmm.
right? What kinds of things was he telling you about the importance of developing yourself? What were some of those lessons that he taught you?
One he used, which really got my attention, he said, why don't you set a goal to become a millionaire? I'm 25 years old. He said, this is America, land of opportunity. Why don't you set a goal to become a millionaire? And then he said, for what it will make of you to achieve it. And I thought, wow, that's a whole different philosophy. Set a goal to become a millionaire for the person you have to become in order to be worth $1 million. Then he said, once you've become a millionaire, you can give the money away, because what's important is not what you got, but the person you became. And I got the message. And that's where I started hearing those phrases from him. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Bringing value to the marketplace is how you get paid. The more value you bring to the marketplace, the better your pay. And also you get paid for what you become. A leader, an entrepreneur, a manager, somebody who has the ability to inspire other people.
So somebody's watching and they're saying, okay, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And they agree with it in principle. They say, yeah, that sounds right. I know I need to work on myself. What would you recommend people do?
I started out with developing a list of skills I didn't have. I'm raised in farm country, southwest Idaho.
Right.
I know how to milk cows, but the pay's not good.
That's right.
So the first thing, and I started part-time, a little sales adventure on how to get customers. It was in health and nutrition, and I believed in the product, and I was taught, here's how you get a customer. And then here's how you ask them, who do they know that wants to be healthier? Then expand your business from there. So that was the first extra skill I learned from just the regular farm skills that started to change my life. So this is part of the personal development, learning that extra skill. In my seminars, I now teach, in the 21st century, you need more than one skill. One is for economic safety.
Right.
Here's the guys that's worked for General Motors. They just, closed a couple of plants and laid off, 25,000 people. This guy has been there, let's say, for 15 years. Now he's laid off, and he tells us he's already having economic difficulty. And the reason is, Chris, he only had one skill. Over the last 3 or 4 years, if he would have taken accounting 2 nights a week or something,
Yeah.
so that when this crisis occurred, he would have something to fall back on. So in my seminars, I teach a whole list of skills I learned by the time I was 31 that not only made me rich, but really broadened the whole scope of my ability to be an entrepreneur, affect other people's lives. And then I got into, of course, teaching and training. But that's part of it. I learned sales. I learned to find good people. I learned to get people to work together. Interesting phrase in the Bible says, if 2 or 3 agree on a common purpose, nothing's impossible. I thought, wow, 2 or 3, not all alone, but 2 or 3. So if you can get inspired and inspire a couple of people to go with you, you could do some pretty extraordinary things. I learned how to do that. Then I learned recognition and rewarding people for steps of progress. You may work for a company and they reward people for the big steps. I've learned to reward people for little small steps of progress. Anything you can think of to give them a reward for making some progress.
It doesn't have to be a big reward.
Doesn't have to be big.
Small.
Something small.
Kind word.
Then it comes to a philosophy that says, be so busy giving other people recognition, you really don't need it for yourself. Now you've arrived at a very good place. Your greatest happiness is other people getting rewards, not necessarily yourself. But then Zig comes back with the old philosophy that's so true. If you help enough people, get what they want, from either money to recognition or success, you can have everything you want.
Yeah.
I heard Zig say that, I think, almost 50 years ago, 45 plus. And when he said, you can have everything you want, I underlined the word everything.
Because you could want a lot,
and
right?
I said, hey, I think Zig is right. If you help enough people get what they want.
Yeah.
But that's another skill.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think the ultimate skill is the skill of communication. And I divided that one into 3 parts. One is training, right? Showing somebody how to do the job. Next is teaching. And I simply use the 2 words for a purpose, teaching life skills. Because one of the things that helped me really revolutionize my life, age 25, was learning how to set goals. Decide what you want, write it down, start checking them off. Where do you want to go? Make that list. Yeah. What do you want for your family? Make that list. Yeah. I started doing all that. That's called teaching life skills. So if you combine job skills with life skills, your chances now really start to multiply. Mm. Then the ultimate in communication is learning to inspire, helping somebody to see themselves better than they are, transporting them into the future. Say, Mary, here's who you could become. With just a few changes, I promise you, you'll never be the same again. Mm. Here's the kind of person you could become. Confident, strong, able to cope with circumstances and changes. You could be that person.
So do you think that is something that anybody can do? I mean, typically when people think of leaders, they think of the heads of, captains of industry and presidents and, leaders of social movements. Is that something somebody do, middle management in their own career, parents?
Sure. Parents should even learn to do it at
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
Here's the person you could become. We try every means possible, right, especially for our children, to expose them ideas that we know we translate best we can, or from church, or hopefully from school, from the neighborhood, from the business community where they might get a job and go to work. We just hope and pray that they will be constantly exposed to things that will cause them to think, change, refine habits, develop skills, have personal satisfaction of the success they want. Mm-hmm. We hope that happens. But it's going to come from a variety of sources, not just one. It's like mentoring. I happened to find somebody who, was the business employer, business partner that I worked with, as well as being a mentor. But sometimes, somebody mentors you in good health. Somebody else mentors you in spiritual matters. Someone else mentors you in family relations. And someone else mentors you in business and developing skills.
Did you go actively looking for mentors throughout your life?
No. After that Girl Scout experience, I said to myself, I must find something. And sure enough, a friend of mine said, I've gone to work with this man. You've got to meet him. That was shortly after that I met Mr. Schoaf. Who knows the mystery of that, right? When
the student is ready, the teacher appears. Yeah.
When you have that determination, it seems like things start, happening and coming your way.
Yeah.
At least the odds are better.
Yeah.
Everything's a matter of odds. But if you do certain things, I think you can increase your odds that better things will happen for you.
Mm-hmm. So after you became successful in your business, then there was a phone call. You got a phone call, right? And somebody said, hey, come and talk to us.
Yeah, I moved to Beverly Hills.
Because that's what you should do when you become successful.
Yeah,
right?
where else would a kid from the farm country of Idaho move to if you got rich? Beverly Hills. So when I get there, a friend of mine said, you've got to come and tell your story to my service club. You belong to the Rotary. And he said, if I arrange this breakfast meeting, I think, or a luncheon meeting, he said, would you come, just do a little 30-minute talk and tell your story? And he said, we'll call it Idaho Farm Boy Makes It to Beverly Hills. I said, okay, suits me. So I did this little talk, and evidently they enjoyed it. Before the day was over, I got a couple more invitations. You got to come talk to our service club, tell that same story, share those same ideas. That started me thinking about, really becoming involved in teaching and training. I'd done a lot of training and inspiring in my own entrepreneurial organizations. but not for the public. So I started doing these little talks for service clubs, and once in a while a high school class, college class, enjoying it very much. Then one day a man said to me, I've heard your talk now 2 or 3 times, and I've got this little company going. And he said, if you would come make a presentation, I'd be happy to pay you. And I thought, incredible.
There's a job.
Yeah. Could I really share my story and get paid? He said, I'll be happy to do it.
Wow.
So I did that. Then that led to another one and another one. Then later on, the idea occurred, why not have some representatives out selling tickets to come and hear a public seminar?
Yeah.
And we finally put that together. And that was, all those many, many years ago.
Tell us a little bit about that. This is a kind of a peek behind the scenes of, because you're really one of the pioneers, you and Zig and some of the other folks, Cavett Roberts and some of those. What was the culture like back then when you guys were out barnstorming America and really developing the whole personal development culture that now is so prominent in America? What was that like?
It was exciting. Of course, I gave it all away.
Huh.
All of those speeches I did
Yeah.
in colleges, the high schools, and for service clubs and so on, that was all free. Then when somebody offered to pay me, that put a whole new look on it. And then I began this process
Mm-hmm.
of creating something valuable enough to where someone would buy a ticket and go and listen.
Mm-hmm.
And those were exciting days. The first one I did for pay, I think I had about 45 or 50 participants that bought tickets. A lot of them were friends of mine that I'm sure bought because they were friends of mine, but there were some others that legitimately bought at the Beverly Hilton Hotel in Beverly Hills. And that first public seminar for people buying tickets, I think, was 1961 or 62.
Wow.
1962.
Wow.
And then it started growing from there.
Yeah.
And developed to where I am now, traveling the world and telling my story and still sharing ideas.
Yeah.
But it was a fantastic time.
What do you,
Earl Nightingale, right?
Yeah,
Some
right,
of those way
Earl.
back in the beginning. Napoleon Hill, with his lecture series way back before, was probably one of the first. They started calling it self-help movement.
Yeah.
And then came along the phrase personal development. Schoaf talked about personal development. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job, he said.
Yeah.
If you work hard on your job, you can make a living, which is fine. If you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune, which is super fine. I thought, this is good philosophy.
Yeah. So did you guys ever get together and do big events with, you and Zig and Norman Vincent Peale? He
Yeah,
was
finally,
around.
over the years.
American Sales Masters, some of
All
those.
of that, way back. That goes
Yeah.
way back.
Huh.
Yeah. I remember the first time I did a multi-speaker. I think it was in St. Louis. It was about, 10,000 people there in one of the big auditoriums. Zig was there, and I was there, and Norman Vincent Peale was there, a couple of others. And this is the time when Zig said to me, he said, Jim Rohn said, you got to pay attention, and you got to really be good today in your presentation. Because he said, if 10,000 people turn on you, it is going to be a difficult day.
Words of wisdom.
Intimidated me, so I get up to speak, and I'm looking up in the balconies, and I'm saying, I got to do my best. Zig may be right. If I don't do well, I will incur the wrath of these 10,000 people. But that was that was good advice.
Mm.
I learned along the way to pay more attention to the audience. Way back in the early days, I was more absorbed in my lecture and what I was having to say. People could have left, and I probably wouldn't have really known it.
Mm.
But then I got to where I could look up and find out what's going on out in the audience, and are they getting it, and is it coming across? And I teach that now in some of my seminars.
Yeah. When you think back to those speakers, who really stands out in your mind as being somebody that you really admired and respected?
Yeah, Zig Ziglar was. We've traveled, gone to other countries to lecture on the same venue. Earl Nightingale was unique.
Yeah.
A unique person in his own right. The stuff that he wrote, as well as his speeches and lectures. were captivating, interesting, made you listen, thought-provoking, and that's all we're really trying to do, right?
Yeah.
The minister on Sunday morning, right, just wants to share ideas, get people thinking, pondering about their life, how to refine things spiritually as well as how to refine things economically and personally.
Yeah.
And we can all use a little coaching, whether it's one-on-one person or whether it's in a seminar setting or whether it's church or a Sunday school class, wherever it is, where ideas are being shared. There's always a chance to pick up something that you hadn't quite thought about before.
Mm-hmm. In 2004, summer of 2004, you got the Masters of Influence Award at the National Speakers Association, and I was there to be able to be there and see that. And one of the things that really amazed me was they asked the crowd, and there was maybe 2,000 people there, 3,000 people there, how many of you would say that Jim Rohn has significantly influenced your life or your speaking career? And nearly 2/3 of the hands went up. How do you feel about that?
It's it's so extraordinary from where I came from.
Yeah.
Southwest Idaho farm country. I still have the old family farm overlooking the Snake River, where I make a little wine and grow a few crops and live the good life there. But it is extraordinary. One of the greatest experiences, and you heard me say before, is when someone puts your name in their testimonial. Here's the person that found me. Here's the person that got me started. Here's the person that wouldn't let me quit. Gave me more reasons for staying than for leaving. Here's the person who believed in me until I could believe in myself. And then they mention your name.
Yeah.
That's big time stuff.
Yeah.
You can't buy it with money.
Yeah.
You have to earn it. What's extraordinary for me now is to go to Russia and lecture. I started lecturing in Russia 12 years ago. To go back now again and have someone say 12 years ago, here's what's happened to me and my family. I want to introduce you to some people. I helped change their life since you changed my life. That's so extraordinary. I guess that's why at age 75, I am still off to Chile and Santiago, and a few days after that, Australia, then 3 cities, I think, in India and South Korea. One little trip.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about your travels, and it's one of the fun things about having speakers like yourself who come in who do world travel, and to really just ask them, what's the world like? There's a lot of people who are watching the show who they don't get a chance to travel that much, and we hear things in the American media or whatever, but what are some of the countries that you've loved to spend time in, and what do you think the average person should know about some of these countries and cultures?
Speaking of the travel, I used to travel to Concord.
Oh,
before they shut it all down. 3 hours from London to New York. It's so extraordinary. Now Singapore's got this new flight, Los Angeles to Singapore direct, 17 and a half hours.
Oh.
So that's quite an experience.
Yeah.
It's like 9 meals and 4 movies, and finally you get there.
Yeah.
But first class is, exciting, and caviar and champagne and, all the amenities. But traveling to other countries, people are basically the same. They've got families and they want to do well, and they want the next generation to be better off than they are. People have hopes and dreams, want to know how they can achieve success. What could I do? It seems like I've been stuck for 4 or 5 years. What could I do to make a difference? Everybody wants to know. And then they want to be fulfilled. People want to, have satisfaction, whether it's spiritually, socially, personally. Satisfaction of personal development. I'm better than I used to be. And I think if I keep working hard, I stand an excellent chance of being better in the future than I've been in the past. Those kind of aspirations, no matter where I go, from South Africa to Scandinavia, from Korea to India to Vladivostok, Russia, doesn't matter. People are basically the same, have the same desires. Some of the forms of government are a bit different, but not the aspirations of the people.
Do you take particular joy going to countries where there's burgeoning capitalistic societies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's been fun for me is the opportunity to teach capitalism in Russia over the last 12 years.
Yeah.
I've been there like 5 times in all the major cities because they didn't have any concept of capitalism all those years under communism.
Right.
Because communism taught capital belongs to the state, not the people. And of course, we believe capital belongs to the people, not the state. A total different economic philosophy. But now, since the walls came tumbling down in Germany, 14, 15 years ago, now they have the opportunity to become entrepreneurs and capitalism, personal responsibility, instead of we're always relying on the state. So it's all changing.
And they're hungry, aren't they?
Just, they're ready for it.
Yeah.
And, of course, the same mystery and magic occurs in Russia like it does everywhere else. And you tell you, here's how you can dramatically change your life from pennies to fortune. And some say, yes, that's great, I will. And some say, I'm not sure that's for me. And I have to learn to accept that, right?
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about kids, because you have a lot of thoughts and theories about things that kids should learn, lessons they should learn. Tell us about some of those.
One of the easiest is capitalism, because I use it even in Russia, teaching capitalism, that even kids can, become capitalists.
Yeah.
Because all it involves is, here's a 12-year-old. Couldn't he search the neighborhood? Doesn't have to be 12. 7 or 8. 8 years old, let's say, this little kid, and he searches the neighborhood, finds a little broken wagon, and pays $1 for it, and brings it home, fixes it up, paints it until it shines, straightens out the wheels until they're true, takes it back to the neighborhood and sells it for $5. Makes a $4 profit. Could that be possible? And everybody says, well, yes, it could be possible. And all he would have to have is the idea. So I'm teaching kids how to have 2 bicycles, one to ride and one to rent. Right. You don't have to be General Motors to make a profit.
Yeah.
So just a bit of ingenuity, from the lemonade stand to whatever. Those are just all examples of capitalism at work, where you make something and sell it, or you buy something and sell it. Then teaching kids a little bit about money management, I think, is important.
What are the things that they ought to learn?
Don't spend more than 70 cents out of every dollar. And then 10 cents for charity or church. Another 10 cents for active capital, like find a broken wagon, pay $1 for it, fix it, sell it for $5. That's active capital. And then last 10% is passive capital. Let someone else use your money. Invest it and let them pay you interest or whatever. So a good program for kids to learn 70, 10, 10, and 10.
Yeah.
And if you do that over a reasonable period of time, you'll become financially independent.
Isn't it funny how human nature, even at that little kid level, is to spend it all?
Yeah.
And then some more.
Yeah.
And borrow and spend some more.
So the way you teach it is, could a child buy a bottle of soap for $2 and sell it for $3? The answer is yes. Johnny goes next door and says, Mrs. Brown, Mama uses this soap. It's really good. It's only $3. And Mrs. Brown says, Johnny, I've really got plenty of soap. And he says, you better let me come in and check. Kids don't have to go to classes, right?
They don't take no for an answer.
Yeah. So they don't need sales training. So she says, well, okay. Probably I do. Here's $3. And so she buys this bottle of soap that Johnny bought for $2. She pays him $3. Now we say to Johnny, here's what you must learn to do with the $3. And we just ask obvious questions. What if you took this $3 now that you just collected from Mrs. Brown and went and spent it all? He says, well, no, you can't do that, because then you'd be out of business. That's right. I mean, some adults don't know that yet. The money they got in their hand, if something comes up, why not spend it? Say, no, you'd be out of business.
Yeah.
You got to save at least $2 back so you can go and buy another bottle of soap.
Yeah.
And sell it for $3 and make another $1.
Then
kids learning to employ other kids.
Yeah.
Johnny mows Mrs. Brown's lawn. She pays $5. The idea occurs to him, why couldn't I get Pete to mow Mrs. Brown's lawn, collect the $5, and give him $1 or $2, for mowing the lawn, and I keep the 3 for getting the business. He says, good idea. Yeah. Mrs. Brown gets her lawn mowed. Pete gets a couple of dollars. Johnny makes 3 for getting the job. And he said, if you do a good job, Pete, I'll have another person, I'll have another place to mow a lawn. And first thing you know, it doesn't have to be huge amounts, just so you understand what capital is all about. Mm-hmm. Capital is any value you set aside to be invested in an enterprise that brings value to the marketplace, hoping to make a profit. Mm. That's capitalism in one sentence. Mm. And it can be capital money or capital time. Time you set aside to be invested. Then I teach in Russia that the time and the money you set aside to be invested is like seed corn. If a farmer has seed corn that he's going to plant, hoping for a harvest come harvest time, would he eat it, this seed corn? The answer is no. Would he feed it to his family? And the answer is no, of course not. Right. Would he give it away and be generous? They say, well, no. You can't be generous with your seed corn. He would protect it by all means, because it's the only way it can multiply and grow into more than what it is. And that's what capitalism is all about, a chance for something to grow and multiply into more than what it is. But you've got to protect it. The same is true with your time. Let's say you set aside a certain amount of time every week to invest in this enterprise that's going to bring value to the marketplace, hoping to make a profit. You can't let anybody have that time.
Yeah. Why is it that we...
What if you asked a farmer to go bowling in the spring? He would say, that's insane.
Can't do it.
You can't go bowling in the spring.
Call me in the winter.
It's just a little short season. We got the lights on the tractors now where we go, around the clock.
Yeah.
Springtime, short season, got to get the crops in. So that's capital time. Yeah. And you have to learn the value of capital time. It's so easy to let somebody steal your time that should be invested.
Why do we let people steal our time? Because it seems to be universal.
I don't know. We just don't set it up and, stick to it.
Yeah.
It's just like wasting time on a lot of things. Years and years ago, I asked a young man one time, because I knew he watched television a lot. I said, how much did your television cost? And he said, $400. And I said, well, you really miscalculated. He said, no, it cost $400. I said, that's to buy it. How much do you think it costs to watch it? Wow. Because I knew he had some skills that he really wasn't employing and was letting it all slide. I said, in my personal opinion, because the average American now watches television 6-7 hours a day. Yeah. I said, in my personal opinion, this television is costing you about $40,000 a year, not to own it, but to watch it. Huh. And I said, that's too much to pay.
Right.
Maybe 4,000, but not 40.
Right.
Come on.
Pay the 4,000 and throw it away and don't use
Absolutely.
it. You'll still be ahead of the game.
So, sometimes all it takes is a revolutionary idea like that. Somebody says, I think Jim Rohn's right. This television is costing me too much money to watch it. Because if I would use that same time employing myself, finding ways to make a profit, whatever, no telling what would happen.
Yeah. What about?
But unless somebody comes along and sort of, shakes up the basket and talks about things like that, on our own, we could think about it eventually, but sometimes it's, it's a bit late.
Yeah.
Because that's why when I said things cost too much, and he said, no, you can't afford them. I hadn't thought about that before. When I said, this is all the company pays, he says, no, that's all they pay you. And without that kind of sort of counsel or guidance or reminder, it's easy to drift along a few more years without making the necessary changes to make your life better.
And he was pointing the responsibility back to you.
Always.
Always about you. Yeah.
He said, you've been working now 6 years. I quit school when I was 19. I'm now 25. That's 6 years. He said, you've been working now 6 years. How are you doing? And I said, not very well. He said, I suggest you not do that anymore. He said, would you like to repeat the next 6 years like the last 6? And I says, not really. He said, would you like to revolutionize the next 6 years versus the last 6? And I said, yes. And over the next 6-year period, I became a millionaire.
You say...
Isn't that amazing?
It is. I mean,
from the first six to the second six.
Same period of time.
Same period of time with a whole totally different philosophy.
Yeah.
Multiple skills, learning to be an entrepreneur, Zig's old philosophy, if you help enough people get what they want, you can have everything you want. Understanding all of that. John Kennedy said, don't ask what the country can do for you. That's not how you get rich. Ask, what could I do for my country? Starting with my neighbors, starting with my family. Is there some service I could render, some product I could represent? What could I do for the people of the country? And if you start thinking about that entrepreneurially, now you can have some extraordinary life change. And it happened to me over that next 6 years versus the last 6. What a difference. And the difference was not the country. You don't have to leave the country. And the difference was not the economy. The economy that second 6 years of my working life was about the same as it was the first 6 years. So the difference was not, and the difference was not circumstances. You know, some winters are long and some are short. You know, that's going to happen in any 6-year period. But the difference now is your own refined philosophy and how you think about things. That's why you've got to welcome every chance to listen to the lyrics of a song, or the sermon on Sunday morning, the teacher, the professor, someone who, like you, recommends good ideas to someone who will take the time to listen. That is all so valuable. And collected over a period of time, compounded into activity and disciplines, fortunes can come your way.
Yeah. You and your friend Charlie Jones talk an awful lot about books, and that we become the product of the books we read and the people we meet, audio programs we listen to. What books have shaped your life the most?
You know, it started with the Bible. My parents made sure I was a pretty good scholar by the time I was 19. That's 66 books.
Now, that's not very politically correct to say
No.
that the Bible, right? So, but that's...
But it's a collection of 66 books, you know, whatever you might think about it.
Yeah.
It's had such excellent recommendation over such a long period of time that it's not a bad idea to at least have a look.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to agree, but it would be, I think, it would be unwise not to look. At least check it out.
What are your favorite thoughts from the Bible?
One I'm using currently, which I think is so valid, is paraphrasing it, the storyteller says there were two nice people. The story of two nice people. Not an evil person and a good person, but two nice people. And the storyteller goes on to say, however, and this is where the drama of life begins. However, one built his house on the rock, and the other built his house on the sand. And in just one sentence, we understand, we comprehend. Well, yes, no matter how nice you are, if you build your house on the sand, come on. Then it says the storms came as they always do, and everybody says, well, yes, we got to recognize that. And the one that built his house on the rock was saved, and the one that built his house on the sand was lost. Both nice people. Which means nice people can make errors in judgment. Nice people can make careless decisions. Nice people can make foolish decisions. Sometimes even fatal. Here's a nice guy. He's married, got a wonderful family. He lives in Los Angeles. He's a good citizen of the community. This is a nice guy. He's ambitious. He does well. He's in Los Angeles driving his car, and he's late for an appointment, and he's pushing it. And he comes to the intersection, and the light turns red, and a little voice in his head says, go ahead, you're late, you can make it. And now he's dead. Nice guy, but he's dead. When in a split second of time, he made a foolish decision. So you don't have to go off to some foreign country and die in some foreign war to be dead. All you have to do is make a careless decision or a foolish decision at the wrong time. And we're all tempted. What was that voice I heard this morning? that said, you don't have to do your exercises this morning.
You hear that voice too?
Yeah, you're running
I
late.
hear that voice too.
You can make up for it, when you get
Right.
back from your seminar trip. And I said, no, I've got to do at least a modified version, even though I'm late. And you just, that's every day, Chris. The waitress irritates you. And now you've got a choice. Let it go, or make a big deal out of it and embarrass everybody. Everybody's got the choice. Mm-hmm. Here's a good one. I'm walking into Nate and Al's in Beverly Hills, where, by the way, 2 mornings ago, there was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I had a nice chat with him. Before I walk into the restaurant, I've got 2 quarters to put into the machine to get my paper. A man walks up just ahead of me, puts in 2 quarters, opens it up, takes out his paper, and he holds the door of the dispenser open and says to me, go ahead and take you a copy. Said, the newspaper can certainly afford it. And he offered for me to take my newspaper for free. What do you do?
Yeah.
Here's a nice person. I got a judgment call to make. Fortunately. Maybe because Mama was watching. I don't know. No, my upbringing. I said, no, thank you. And he looks very shocked. Said, okay, closed the door. And I put in my 2 quarters and got my paper. Because the key is, if you take the free paper, it could affect you for the rest of the day. Something will sort of nag at you and say, why would you want to feel like this to save 2 quarters?
Right.
And sometimes when you do it, now that's a good lesson, and you won't do it anymore because you just don't want to feel that way anymore. That means maybe part of that's how you've been raised, right? Those little moral questions that you go through.
And guilt can be a good teacher.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
you don't want to hear
at
from
you. Say, well,
yeah,
I don't want to feel like this, and maybe it nags at you for a whole week, and you say, wow, for 2 lousy quarters, I took me the free newspaper, never again. And but sure enough, the next time we're tempted again. It doesn't mean that the temptation goes away. We get a little bit stronger about saying yes to the positive side. Yeah. Because that's the way I really want to live my life.
After the Bible, what other books would you recommend for people to pick up that shaped and influenced your life?
I'm big on Shakespeare, and Think and Grow Rich changed my life. The Richest Man in Babylon helped me become a millionaire by the time I was 31. Then I'm a big student of history. Durant, Will and Ariel Durant wrote all these books on history. I go through some of those. One book I've got that helped lay the foundation for my own library was a book called How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler.
Mortimer Adler, yeah.
And in this book, he's got a list of what he considers, the best books ever written.
Yeah.
And I use that as sort of a centerpiece for my library.
Yeah. Did you ever meet David Schwartz, Magic of Thinking Big?
No.
Never met him.
That's a good book.
Yeah. Terrific book.
Yeah. Huh. And then there's a book that years ago when I was in my late 20s, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. Yeah. Where each sentence is almost like a whole seminar.
Short little book.
Yeah. But dynamic. Yeah. In its effect. Become a good reader, I say now in my seminars, right? The books you don't read won't help. 2 books a week in a 10-year period, and you've read 1,000 books. Wow. And if over the next 10 years you read 1,000 books, it will dramatically affect every phase and part of your life.
Yeah. You talk about the 2 pains. Everybody has to experience one of 2 pains. And I think that it's one of my favorites that you talk about because it's so profound and it's so true and it's so final. It is universal. You will experience one of the 2 pains. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, the little illustration about the newspaper is a good illustration. The pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Go for the discipline because it weighs ounces. The regret weighs tons because it can accumulate. Discipline versus regret. The discipline could be painful, but the regret is usually an accumulation that could eventually become overwhelming. So better the discipline now. But it's true in real life. If you discipline yourself to plant the crop in the spring, you now have a chance for a multiplied harvest in the fall. What you don't plant won't multiply. What you neglect. I neglected to buy from my friend 8 years ago. He offered me this little tiny condo, 1 bedroom, little small place in Carmel, California.
Yeah.
Ron said, I want $80,000 for this condo. I said, Ron, that's insane. Nobody's going to pay $80,000 for this condo. He said, okay. If you change your mind, let me know. I'm ready to sell. Well, I didn't buy. And he put it on the market last year, toward the end of last year, for $650,000. That was one of those times I should have listened to the positive side of the voice that said, why not buy?
And he kept it for another 8 years,
Yeah.
right?
So in his prayers every night before he goes to sleep, he, thanks the good Lord, I didn't buy this condo. 80,000 to 650,000.
Wow.
Everything's lessons to learn, right? I could have, I should have. I'll do a better job in the future of making wiser decisions. That's the best counsel we can possibly have. Yeah. Whether it's a bit of waste of time that we could tighten up on or whatever it is, why not do it? Then I think one of the greatest joys for me, and of course I've made it now, it's become a business, is passing along and sharing ideas with others that have profoundly affected your own personal life. It's a great joy, whether I do it in Novosibirsk, Siberia, or whether I do it in South Africa or India or anywhere in the world. The opportunity that if you say something uniquely enough that it could affect somebody's life or begin the process of affecting somebody's life, it's an awesome experience.
Yeah. You have a list of things that people should do. Everybody should, what is it, have a Manhattan in Manhattan? And
oh, yeah, those life experiences.
Those are fun.
Yeah.
What are some of those experiences you think everybody should do?
Drink a Manhattan in Manhattan, yeah. You should have Australian lobster tails in Australia.
Yeah.
You should eat Boston baked beans in Boston. Maui onions are delicious, but you have to eat Maui onions in Maui.
It's a lot better than the Walla Walla onions.
Yeah, right.
I'd rather eat onions. If you have to eat
True.
onions, Maui better than Walla Walla.
It's a fun list to make.
Yeah.
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 You got to drink Canada Dry in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If you think long enough, you can come up with a pretty good list of say, hey, that sounds like experiences that I'd like to have.
How are you spending your time?
Got to have a Singapore sling in
Singapore.
Singapore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was there just 3 or 4 months ago. Singapore. Yeah. It's a fun list, and it's just check them off.
Yeah.
But then I talked about, you got to drink in an Arizona sunset, and walk the white beaches of Carmel, and just start making this list. Let it inspire you.
Yeah.
I started teaching this a long time ago, and it's surprising how many people come up to me and say, I've added to my list. I'm working on the list. 20 years ago when I heard you say this. Here's some of the places I've gone. I probably never would have gone if I hadn't have heard your seminar. That's exciting. Yeah. You got to have an Idaho baked potato in Idaho.
Yeah. You're spending a little.
You
bit
can
of
have
time
one in
Idaho,
Beverly
right?
Hills, and it's okay. But make the trip.
Yeah.
Just to say, hey, I had an Idaho baked potato in Idaho.
Yeah. So how are you spending your time now when you're not traveling?
Well, I used to ride the Jeep trails on my dirt bike. But my daughter finally persuaded me. Daddy, she said, age 75, I'm not so sure. So that's sort of passing away. But I used to love to do that.
Yeah.
It was one of my getaway times. up on top of the mountains, riding the jeep trails, and either alone or with somebody, and good way to get away.
Yeah.
No traffic lights. Time alone, I think, is really essential.
Sure.
To get away, contemplate, think, wonder. Something I'm doing now is working on the multi-purpose seventh day.
Huh.
It says, work 6, rest the 7th, but I'm calling the 7th day now multi-purpose. Spirituality and friendship and getaway and so on. Yeah. But I'm also saying, Chris, that 7th day should be a little bit of time spent reviewing the last 6 days. Huh. Who did I not meet? What didn't I do? What did I miss? What should I tighten up? And then make better plans for the next 6 days. Huh. I'm going to catch up the next 6 days, some of this that I've missed the last 6. So that's part of the multi-purpose of the 7th day. Review 6, get better ready for the next 6.
Yeah. Well, this has been fascinating. 57 minutes, and we could have been here all day, and sometimes we do. We go to the all-day or the 2-day Jim Rohn seminar, and so I just want to say thanks for coming in and spend a little bit of time and giving us some of your stories that you tell all around the world and truly have impacted so many lives, including my own, and I appreciate that.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah. I appreciate it. Yeah. It's fun to be here.
Thanks. I'm Chris Widener. That's Made for Success. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.